Hi, welcome back to Community Kitchen Teachables. I am your host, Anna, and I work for a community kitchen and I run a program called Calgary's Cooking. What we're going to talk about in this video is different types of sugar. Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail about the molecular structure of sugar cubes or anything like that, but I do get asked a lot, what's the difference between white sugar and brown sugar and where do I use them? Which then led to me going, oh, maybe we do need to have a conversation on sugar. So let's start with the most basic and most common types of sugar, which is the white granulated sugar that is right here. You can get this pretty much everywhere. It gets used for a ton of different things. It is your go-to type of sugar for most baking, most kitchen applications, most cooking applications. A lot of people will use this type of sugar for their coffee or their tea. So basically how sugar is manufactured is it gets harvested from either sugar beets or sugar cane, mostly from sugar cane. It gets dried out and the molasses, which is naturally found in sugar, gets removed from the sugar, and that's where you get the white granulated sugar. Okay, the next type over is the brown sugar. Now, brown sugar is definitely a main ingredient for a lot of baking. There are two different types of brown sugar. There's a lighter and then a darker. The only difference between the two is the lighter brown sugar has a little less molasses and it's a titch drier than the darker brown sugar. The other brown sugar is a little darker in color. It has a bit more of a pronounced darker caramelly toffee type flavor. It depends what you want to do with it. If ever in doubt, go with the lighter brown sugar. If you're making something like gingerbread or anything with molasses, maybe a ginger cake, I would probably go towards more the darker brown sugar, but it's completely up to you. Either way is fine. The third type of sugar we have is sugar in the raw. So what I've got here is sugar in the raw cubes. These again are really great for coffee, tea, particularly the cubes. There is an argument that raw sugar, because it's less processed, it is healthier for you. I'm gonna say that's very marginal. A lot of people will use the sugar in the raw because it is less processed, but it also has that caramely toffee type flavor. So it really comes down to a preference in terms of, what your philosophy is with healthy sugar versus what kind of taste you're going for. Now, the next type of sugar I want to get into is the 0-calorie types of sugars. So we have the Splenda, which is this one here. Now, Splenda sugar is basically an artificial sweetener. How it's actually manufactured is it does start off as white granulated sugar in the manufacturing process, but then it goes through a huge chemical process that alters the structure of the sugar and basically makes it almost no calorie sweetener. The advantage to using the Splenda or any of this type of product, any kind of artificial sweetener, is that because of the structure, because of the manufacturing process that this sugar goes through, what that means is that you don't need as much of this as you would for sweetening. So this is 600 times sweeter than the white granulated sugar. So therefore you don't need as much of this. And then that goes into the whole world of, is it a healthier sugar substitute? People who are diabetics can generally use this a little bit more than this, that kind of thing. The other advantage to this is that it is bake stable. So what that means is you can bake with it, you can put it in an oven at a higher temperature and it won't break down and it won't affect your product. You just need less of it, that's all. The final sugar we'll go into is a type of sugar that's a little bit more natural, and that is sort of like stevia, or one thing that's becoming really popular now is monk sugar. So basically what stevia is a sugar that comes from a plant, It is definitely not as sweet as the Splenda, but it is sweeter than the white granulated, so you need less of it. And again, if you go down the thread of the health food conversation, a lot of people will use stevia or monk sugar as a substitute. Again, you don't need as much in order to get a bit of that sweet tooth. So a lot of draw to using this is that it's more natural than this, but you don't need as much, so you are not consuming as many calories. And that is our topic on sugar and sugar substitutes. Thank you very much for joining me during this video, and may you have yourself a great day.